talk about AI. I've been working in AI for about 6 years. I started a business 3 years ago that works on AI. AI isn't just limited to Siri and Alexa. The process is simple. You take data. Now, it's called a neural network. A neural network is a way of connecting neurons together. You have a set of inputs. And they map to a given set of outputs. A neural network has different layers. The more neurons, the more powerful the network is. But also the more data is required to train. Initially, so you start with inputs, the data. And then and then you get an output. You start with, you say that the model X is a function of the data. And this is stochastic, it's non-deterministic, and it's based on the empirical evidence found in the data. Call this Y hat. Then say epsilon greater than 0 is an error term. And the better the model, the smaller the error. It's also good to understand the history of AI. Neural nets were invented in the 80s. It was Juan LeCun, Andrew Ng, and who were talking about this before it was trendy. The first model that was ever used was actually by the US Postal Service to identify handwriting letters. That was an image computer vision problem, and it's still used today. Similarly, you all know about the classic decision tree. I learned all about decision trees. They are a simplification of the problem, oftentimes. They are very easy to train, and you can use them with simple Boolean logic. So they're kind of an alternative to using a black box that you don't understand. This is a book, Artificial Intelligence, by John Paul Mueller and Luca Massaron. Learning from these books is great. It starts with the introduction to AI, considering the uses of AI in society, working with software-based AI apps, working in AI and hardware, considering future of AI, the part of 10 safe occupations, and then 10 ways which AI has failed. I found this interesting. 287. It talks about the difference between interpreting instead of analyzing. An AI uses algorithms to manipulate incoming data and produce an output. The emphasis is on performing an analysis of the data. However, a human controls the direction of that analysis and must then interpret the results. You have to be able to interpret and produce meaningful, considering human behavior. Humans are not rational creatures, and even when we have AI that gives us the right answer, we need more than just mathematical models. One of the devising new data from old is also kind of a limitation. There are ways of creating fake data sets using simulation studies. That's what you hear about with deep fakes and those fake images. That's been done before with GANs. Basically, they take some data as a seed, and then they have two models. One network produces data, and the other classifies it as being real or fake. Imagine having millions and millions of iterations that sort out the realistic looking data from the fake data. And when you see video games, robots that can play games, those usually work by having, I think it's called a policy, and then the model will continue to enforce that policy until a desired outcome is met. Take for like, you've seen, it was a while ago that AI started playing people in Dota, and we had bots that would come onto servers. Heck, when I played Counter-Strike, they were bots on the servers. When there aren't enough users, they populate the servers to keep them more, to make it look like there's real activity there. Bots were stupid though, except there used to be a joke. We'd say that person's aimbotting. If they were too good, we said, oh, they're not human, they're using hacks. Well, the same is still true with AI. How do you measure the power of a network? Let's talk about like chatbots. Well, there's a tokenization process which takes a sentence or paragraph and transforms that into a vector space using tokenization. And the more tokens that are used, the more powerful that network is. We used to call that the credibility factor. Using AI in a safe and effective way. There's ways to reduce the risk. For example, if you have a really accurate neural net, you can dilute it using a simpler model that will have lower variance, perhaps higher bias, and then you can take a weighted average of those two. That's basically, what ChatGPT did. Initially they launched like their full development model. They just pushed it out. And then a couple months in, they started diluting it with a surrogate model. People noticed on Reddit saying, hey, the performance suddenly got worse. The predictive analytics exam, which is what I taught and passed myself, and then had over 500 individual clients who I coached through all of the modules and that talks through the difference of supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and there's a lot of I have a book that talks about this. I think I should get it published. You think so? Yeah, the ways that AI is used for harm are like deep fakes or cybersecurity, cryptography, and figuring out people's passwords, creating sexual images or fake images used for sextortion crimes, committing fraud in healthcare insurance, or doing like impersonation through voice calls, or also stealing data, stealing information from using things like massive data mining and collection methods that siphon people's information. Other data aggregators, they're basically companies that buy massive amounts of data. If you literally, I remember I was sitting in Starbucks in 2020 talking to my friend who was in investment banking, and I was like, I think AI is a bubble. Oh my God, I wish I could eat my words. Generally. But there's something called there's also bias. Disclaimer. There's a bias and there's a variance. Generally, the larger the data sets, the better, the lower the bias and the lower the variance. GPT-4 was trained on like 1 billion tokens, but now the models are getting even larger. Google Gemini is coming out, and the CIA and the NSA are coming connected with the private sector. There's now hidden layers in this network, from the things like civil rights, the right to, well, there's something called GDPR, Global Data Privacy Protection Act. It was like California that first started doing legislation around data privacy, and then now that's spread to all of the US. The European Union is a little bit ahead in terms of regulating data and AI. The Digital Services Act will create more statutes and laws around how data is gathered and used. AI is in when you apply health insurance, or you get advertisements on your phone from CVS, or even in the automotive industry. If you have a telematics sensor installed on your car, the insurance companies will use that in their machine learning models to calculate your premiums. That's been around. Now, though, it's being bought out. The industry is being bought out, and that's why if you're not learning to code, if you don't know Python, if you're just getting into TensorFlow and Keras, I would say that's the pathway to start. Before you try to jump into Llama 2 and Meta and these like chatbots, and you have to know a little bit about the math. Also, you have to have good hardware, computing software. Invest in a good PC. Maybe you already have a gaming computer, or you can just sign up for like a cloud service. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Just like get a bunch of credits, set up some virtual PCs, and run some experiments. The basic ways of storing data structures, formats, if it's video, if it's text, if there's XML. Mostly you know about like data frames and CSV files, but there's a lot more different types of storing data. Why am I saying that this is new? What's the breakthrough? The breakthrough was with about a year ago when ChatGPT was released. It had 1 million users sign up in the first week, and ChatGPT now has 100 million users per month. So that's why I think the United States has to be at the forefront of this, and it has to be something. Okay, vaping is now approved by the FDA. You can now just buy these. Same with marijuana. It used to be that those things were all they were very risky until they've become more regulated and there's more protections in place. So that's why the Wild West is in the field of AI right now, because it's real, it's impacting you, and if you're not the one doing the AI and using your own algorithms, then someone else is doing that for you. Look at my videos, my YouTube videos. We'll cover the basics of machine learning, things like decision trees, pruning, support vector machines, regression models, gradient boosted machines. I'm just gonna keep talking. Okay, you should also do Kaggle. Kaggle is a free website where you can work with real data sets and practice running machine learning models on GPUs. And also networking and learning from other data scientists who are working in that field. And also if you don't know if you want to learn about R programming, I would say just start with base R, learn the basic data types before you try to move on to like the tidyverse, dplyr, and all those caret and TensorFlow. I have an R library that's been published to CRAN. It's been downloaded a lot of times. It's been used a lot of times. It basically imports data sets to your computer with the click of one button. These are from sources, the UCI Machine Learning Repository, the Society of Actuaries Insurance Claims Database, health insurance companies. It was sort of like the pre-AI machine learning era where all these data sets were collected, and now you can use them in new ways. And share this with someone who is politically active and would like to learn about AI policy, to AI safety, and how to upskill in this complex world. Cheers.